Welcome to the Indie KidLit podcast. Join Marti Dumas and Elena Page on their quest to help children's and middle grade authors find the right audience and sell more books.
Welcome back to the Indie KidLit podcast. I'm Elena Page.
And I'm Marti Dumas. And today is our sort of famous, slightly infamous goal setting and review podcast episode. This is our episode 49. So that means that we're looking back from episode 43 through episode 48. And this is like a really heavily packed list. Can I just say before we actually start talking that this sounded like such a great idea when we were first deciding that we were going to do it. I have really unrealistic expectations for myself and how much work I can get accomplished in a time period. And so when I was like, oh, it's like we have 2 weeks between everyone to be able to try out, implement a thing that they did, and then come back and report on it. I can totally get that done. Definitely. I think I did for a little while, but now it's really, I'm like, this is a lot. We have a lot to try, which I guess is a good problem to have, but okay. Yeah. So with that failure said, we had in our stretch this time, we had Lori Wright, Melanie Schubert, Terrence Shipman, Karen Inglis, who is that was a repeat for Karen, David Blaze, and Jessica Brody. So should we start from the top? What do you think?
Yeah, let's start from the top. Lori Wright.
And Lori's amazing. She's so kind and generous with her time, and also still killing it. Go Lori.
Killing it. And she deserves to, because she's really done everything right. I think we can learn so much from her right from the very beginning. I mean, she's so structured. She even did Kickstarter and raised the money for all for the illustrations. That's impressive.
Yeah, it totally is. And also knowing your market. I think that that's a thing that we come back to very often. If you catch one of Lori's ads, or if you're one of the people that she's been generous enough to just send ad copy to, which she's done, right? Mm-hmm. And you're looking at it, she knows who she's talking to, and she's talking specifically to that person in the ad, and the book is talking specifically and directly to a need, which I think that we underestimate a lot of times, because I don't even know why, the creative muse, it's I feel like having this. It's if you're not your test audience, then that's maybe, I mean, I guess obviously there's value in that, but there's also value in the other thing too.
I think we tried too hard to be writerly, that, to sound sort of smart writerly, and she just makes it so simple, really simple, clear language. It's almost stupidly simple, and yet it's really hard to do. It seems oh my gosh, this would be so easy to use that simple language she uses. I don't know how she does it. I think just her brain works like that. She's so good at it.
So who said that thing? I would have written you a shorter letter, but I didn't have time. It's really hard to write really direct, simple prose that's clean and understandable. That's not an easy task at all. Yeah.
So have you been trying to do that a bit more since the interview with her?
No, because it's not my style, and I don't have a lot of joy from it particularly, although I can imagine that there might be things that I might get joy from in the future. For me, all of life is about finding your joy, right? And so then sometimes you need money to have that, and so then I want everybody to have enough money that they're going to have the opportunity, the space to be able to find their joy. So I probably wouldn't totally sacrifice that on the one hand, but there's tons of other things that Lori said. For example, her she is running a decent amount of ads every day on Amazon, and also she has a decent ad spend on its face, right? Now her ad spend results in exponential profit, right? But she's not spending $5 a day and thinking that that's going to bring in a gold rush for her. Wow. So that has that means that it's out there, which we know, like Amazon's whole point in life is making people dependent on Amazon so that they are on Amazon, which means that people are on Amazon. So that means your people are on Amazon too. So spending more time on those Amazon ads and truly like doing what it takes to be able to master them is important. It's not a thing that I've like really done. But it is a thing that I'm planning to do. We have Amazon ads running, but they're essentially just like running on autopilot. Like, so we have like sort of weeded out the keywords that don't work as well, or that we didn't get good at, like didn't get good ROS, like return on and ROI on return on investment. But, and then just like let them be, right? So they're like running at a very low steady state, but that's probably that's not the best plan. That's just like a make sure you have your toe in that water kind of plan. So then because of Lori, like that ends up on the list, but it's not a thing that like I've actually done for us yet or had somebody else do for us yet. What about you?
If I'm allowed to say, I hired Lori.
You're allowed to say?
Yeah, well, you know, I'm like, because I'm meant to be secret. I hired her. I just thought, you know what, like I could sit here and try to work all this stuff out, or I could just pay her the measly amount that she charges and get her to actually work on.
And how's it going? She's going to end up having 1,000 clients like that.
I know.
This is going even remotely well for you. Because like I'm going to be next, and this is going to be before. I'm just heads up, everybody. Because if Elena has even a mildly good experience in this conversation, I'm going to be doing that before this episode airs, so that like I'll be ahead of you in line.
Do not steal my time with her, okay?
I won't. I definitely won't. I haven't found the time yet to do all of those things. Like I've tried to be like prioritizing writing, and it's like insane. Anyway, so tell us about your experience, Elena.
I'm kidding around, you know, like I do have a few clients of my own who often say to me, and it drives me crazy, oh, I haven't told anybody about you because I like to keep you to myself. And I'm like, seriously? Is that like a thing?
Dude, don't do that. Don't do that.
So, you know, I'm not going to do that. I'm happily sharing her expertise. But essentially, I hired her to have a look at my original series, which is the meditation adventures for kids. But she's also
those are great.
She looks at everything, you know, like she's just so amazing. Like if there's extra time or stuff, she'll be like, by the way, I also fixed up your magicians, you know, like she's amazing. And it's probably like I imagine I would not have improved this by the time this goes to air. So in case I haven't, you're welcome to go and ruin my statistics by going on and having a look at my book blurbs. But essentially, I've corrected book 1 and book 2 according to her method, and haven't really gotten around to doing 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7 yet. I will do that during the January holidays. So it's probably a good time to see the contrast between them. So, you know, like it's been fantastic. So, you know, we go through the blurb and the really detailed look at the blurb and the reviews and how to lay it all out and make it look really pleasing and aesthetic and all that sort of stuff. And the words that you want to pop and how to write that blurb so that it pops. Like she really goes in depth. And then, you know, like even about the author, she just made me sound so smart and really, and I think the key is not even the smart bit, to be honest. She made me sound like I knew what I was doing when I wrote the books. Does that make sense? Like they really
you had a purpose and you knew who you were talking to.
Thank you. You've said that so poignantly. It's exactly what she did. So it was that.
You're like, Marty, stop saying the same thing over and over again. Okay.
But you just say it differently and it's perfect. You know, we need things repeated lots and lots of times in all different ways to appeal to different listeners, and that's the key. And that's exactly what she's done. But also she did walk me through the ads and how to make sure that I kill ads that aren't making money and keep ads that are making money and scale them up. And so far it's been going really good. Like I've definitely increased my income since doing the session with her, which I suppose is the bottom line, you know, because you do, I mean, it's not the only reason we do these things, but ultimately it has increased my revenue from doing that with her. And I've still got a couple of sessions to go. So we're not really done yet. And yeah, I highly recommend it, but don't steal my last 2 time slots. Okay, because I don't want my session in April. I'm warning you people. So yeah, but it's she's fantastic. She's got, and it's interesting, like even talking to her, she says, oh, I like doing the marketing stuff better than writing the book. She's just got the brain for it, you know, that
Definitely got the
really,
brain for it.
yeah, that
Yeah.
businessy, but it's not even just the businessy brain. She simplifies the complex, and I think that's really the key. So I suppose what I'm saying to listeners is, even if you don't have a session with Laurie, go back to really the basics and simplify the complexity. Say what you really want to say, the people who you really want to say it to, in a way that they'll understand.
Yeah.
That's really all it is.
Yeah. It is all it is, but like that's like such a hard thing to do. I see people all the time who are like posting their blurbs for feedback, and you can sort of tell from the feeling, like you know how like some posts have like an aura on all their own. So like you're like feeling in this post that the person really what they wanted to hear was, this blurb is glorious.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
you should change nothing and just put it exactly as it is. Like on the back of the book and on the internet, you're a genius. And like it's comforting to be able to hear that. But like a lot of times, I feel like most of the time that I feel that aura coming off of that kind of like request for support or information or whatever, the person has put all the things that they love about the book in their blurb because it's their book. Like they like I feel like it's really, really, really hard to do that for your book, particularly if you're retrofitting it, right? So if you didn't have that very simple vision of who this is for, why they need it, like why it's going to improve their life on the front end, I feel like it's super hard to like reverse engineer it on the back end when you're the author. So I do think that Laurie has a particular talent, but like identifying the thing that you need, like that at the very least, if you can't like get in with Laurie, like if you are doing it with a partner, like you can use more specific words to ask them what it is that you need. Like you can say, I know that I'm probably too close to this, but this needs to be simple. It needs to be, you know what I mean? Like all the things you can maybe pass that off to a writing partner or like a critique partner or however that works to try to kickstart that same thinking for your own thing if you're not gonna try to get in with Laurie, which I feel like there's just gonna be a stampede of people trying to get in with Laurie. Because
hope she doesn't kill me for increasing her business tempo.
I know, right? Like I'm making quite enough off my book. Thank you. So like
she's like, I really wanted to have a Christmas holiday. Thank you, Eleanor. Oh dear.
Absolutely. Okay. So then we talked with Melanie Schubert, who has Gregory and the Grimbuckle, which is like just an adorable little book. But she just has that one book, and it just seems like it's like all over the place. Her one book, and she did a lot of guerrilla marketing things, which is what made me so like interested in her in the first place. But then when we were talking to her, a thing that she pointed out was how much she enjoyed being a part of a team. And that being a part of a team was like, for her, the biggest part of her success, but then also of her enjoyment of actually being a creative, like a writer. So what did you pull out from Melanie?
I can honestly say from Melanie, I remember asking her about her, confidence, because to me, she's quite strikingly confident about her book. Like she sort of, has this, I'm a writer, I wrote this amazing thing. And so she should be. And I remember at the time when we interviewed her that I was not that still, after how many books, I'm like, Melanie, I need some of your confidence. And I do feel that I've gained more of that after talking with her, interestingly. I feel that she was right. If you don't go out and really love your baby, no, it's like sending your kid to kindergarten and saying, I don't know how I feel about this kid. I hope you wouldn't do that. So why do that with any of your children, your little books? So I really took that. I also, with her, a couple of other things, obviously her creativity. The book, had a soundtrack. I haven't done any of that necessarily. Though having said that, I did have a soundtrack for Lolly and the Lollipop because it originally was an audio CD. And and it is quite nice. I don't know that I would do it for a middle grade, but maybe, it's quite a novel idea. So that, Yeah, she's very creative, isn't she, with how she gets that one book out there and picking out the characters and making them very unique. And you're very good at doing that too. You know, like you've done that, I think, with both of your series. Oh, you've got
Wait,
three
what did I
series.
do?
Well, you know, if I think of, Jaden Toussaint, like he's a cool dude, like he's a character that is memorable, that someone would want to dress up as on, book week, like it's that sort of thing. I
Hmm.
think I also picked up from her that she's made that character quite unique and special. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Yeah. So I think that for Melanie, the thing that I am trying to implement is also part of the confidence thing, but maybe not exactly the same in the same line, but
Mhm.
like definitely in that same like direction, because I found it really interesting, the teamwork thing, right? Her being like that she's a part of a team, and I'm like, yeah, all of us need validation, right? It's like you're talking to yourself while you're
Yeah.
writing these things, and you are actually talking to yourself while you're writing these things. So to like have validation come from the outside, even if it's not huge, right? Like it can be small, but then that to me said I need to be more intentional about putting the things that I've written before publication in the hands of people whose opinions I respect. So like
Hmm.
beyond my editors, right? Like being like, hey, legit, if you read this and felt like it was good, then I would feel like, yes, okay, maybe this thing is a little bit ready for the world. There's somebody out there who wants to hear it, um,
Mhm.
and your opinion really matters to me. I think we've done a lot more of, and not to say that like um obviously the people on my mailing list's opinion matters to me. Like that's like a huge thing. But like we've done more where it's like I don't necessarily know the person until we start emailing back and forth, because they end up like on my beta reader team.
Uh-huh.
And so then it's like that's when I get to know them, not before then. So then I also want to make sure that I'm adding in people besides my editor before then, who I'm like, okay, tell me what you think,
Yeah.
about this thing.
Nice.
Because it's nice to have some validation. It really is. And it does help you to move forward with more confidence. I think when there are people, which inevitably will happen, who like really your book is not for them. So then they're really not going to enjoy the book. So then I feel like you need to have as much in your head about like what's good, like what's working with it, like who it is
Mhm.
for, to
Mhm.
be able to counterbalance that before it even before it
True.
even happens. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, that's a good point, really valid point. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'll take that on board. I will. That's a good one. Yeah, because I'm not so much a validation person. Like people think I am because I'm like, oh, it's terrible, isn't it? But you could validate it till the cows come home. You could say it's amazing, and I'm like, shut up. What do you know? Like, it's me it has to validate. It's the opposite to you.
Yeah.
I feel,
Yeah.
and correct me if I'm wrong. I feel you're the opposite. You're like, this, I'm really proud of this. I did a really good job. And then you put it out and someone might go, well, you want it to reach your audience. You
Not
genuinely,
necessarily. I think
no?
it's more like, no, not necessarily. I think it depends on the book, right? So
Okay.
there are some books that I'm like, well, I love this story. So, like Jupiter Storm, I
Okay.
love that story.
No
If you
matter
don't
what.
love that story, then that
Gotcha.
story's not for you. That's my
Perfect.
opinion. But I love that story. But I
Okay.
think that there are other things that, like, it's like I have written it, maybe not to market, but like I've written it to someone that is not me. So
Uh-huh.
then I'm not
Okay.
sure. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? Like
yeah, yeah.
it's,
That
yeah,
makes sense. That makes
yeah.
sense. Yeah, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Because you've written it for that audience, you want to make sure it does hit the audience's needs.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Nice.
Or that if it's not my needs, it needs to be meeting someone's needs. Do you know what I
Yes.
mean? It's yeah,
Gotcha.
yeah, hmm yeah,
Perfect. Good
yeah.
clarification.
You
Good.
know, life. All right. So then we chatted with Dr. Terrence Shipman, who also has been doing a good deal of guerrilla marketing, but also had been like trying to like dip into. He did a lot with like crowdfunding things, and also really like rallying his local community around him and his work. And still, like, it's still like, if you follow him on Instagram or in other places, like, you see that that's still happening, like it's still rolling through. So what did you get from Dr. Shipman?
So much. It's amazing how it's really based on, family values and sort of core needs that, like, everyone's going to have to do. Like, everyone has a first day of school, that sort of just basic thing, which is, again, a bit like Laurie, so obvious, and yet we don't do enough of. And the themes, talking up the themes of your book, I think I really got from Dr. Terence Shipman. How about you?
Yeah, so I think certainly those things, but also I really don't. I've like done the exact opposite of what he has done in terms of engaging like my community. I in fact never tell my immediate community when I have a new book coming out. I'm like, if you
Really?
can, yeah, no, I don't. I mean, I did that yeah. So like the like sort of like church community that like I was like in like up until my early 20s, people were super, I want to say, entrepreneurial. Like they were trying to like be able to be independent and be helpful to each other, but also be independent at the same time. And the thing that I saw in there was that like everybody was selling to it was like a tiny little economy. Like people were essentially like selling to each other over and over again. It's like,
Mm.
that's not actually, none of you is actually gonna I mean, you'll be able to trade your wares, and that's a valuable thing. But your idea that this is going to like kickstart your business is really false, because like the community is too close, it's too tight. And I don't like selling people things that they don't need. So I don't have a desire personally, although probably as a business person I should, for the people that I know to go out and buy my books and then have them just sit on a shelf. Unless that's what they do with books anyway, right? Like if they just buy books to decorate their shelves, then certainly buy mine and stick them on the shelf too. But if you're not really the audience, then I wouldn't want. So then I just don't say. And
Mm.
I think that has helped in some sense. Because I don't feel like I do have a lot of writer friends who are like sad when their friends aren't like vehemently liking um
Um,
their I published a book post, or maybe they are vehemently liking their I published a book post, and but then there's not corresponding sales to go with that. So then there's like a sadness in that for them. And I never get that because I never say. So then that's a thing. And then the other piece is that my also bots, where's the wood? Knock, 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 knock. My also bots are always really good. I never send random people to my page.
right.
And I think that's why my also bots are always really good. Again, the wood, we're knocking on that. But so then like the idea of like, so then talking with Dr. Shipman, I was really like, how should I be harnessing my community? Like, in what ways should I be willing and able to ask about things? Yeah, I'm still working on that, but I'm more willing to work and think about it, I think, as a result of his conversation, because essentially the people are supporting him because they love him, but
Mm.
which is good, right? And I don't think that you should stop people from doing things to show you that they love you. So like that's yeah, anyway, so that's a life lesson for me, but like probably a lot more therapy is going to be needed before I'm able to like fully get that one like out
But
in like a useful sense.
ultimately, it's about how you build a community, right?
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
how do you actually build a community around yourself. And it's I think it's a struggle for a lot of authors, because, like you said, either the community is their family and friends who aren't really their community. You want to build your actual tribe, and I think he does that so well because he's a teacher in that environment, and he, is genuinely, again, a bit like Laurie, offering them the solution kind of, but in such a helpful way, like that he's not actually going out and saying, hey, I wrote a book. He's saying, when you start school, like he's actually talking about the principles and family values, and he's making it like we're all together on this. We're all working towards this together.
Yeah.
I think that's the difference, but it's a big conversation, because that's all about how do you build a tribe around yourself in a way that isn't tacky, or it's tricky. It's not as simple as it sounds. I think it's good, and maybe it's something for us to aim for in future episodes, to get more examples of that, because I think there are many different ways you can do it, and the more examples we have of that, the better it is. And I just recently heard Chris Fox, actually, on Joanna Penn's podcast, talking about how he's made his own, like, a Dungeons and Dragon game, and how he's building a tribe and a community from that perspective. So there's lots and lots of different ways to do it. I think it does need a bit of thought to be done well, but to not do it at all isn't necessarily the solution.
Yeah, no, it's definitely not the solution. That's not the.
I mean, you can not have a community and still sell books and things, but it does take a certain qualities to create a team. And Dr. Terence Shipman is just such a leader, isn't he? You can feel that personality in him. He leads those people, and not every author is going to be that kind of leader. So it's not going to work for everybody, but one way or another, you are building a community if you have people that buy your books. So
No, absolutely. And that's not, definitely building a community in that sense, or, which is one of those things that it's like, every time somebody unsubscribes, like, from your mailing list, you should have, like, a little party, like a mini party. You should have, like, a little thing that you do, because that means that your tribe is getting more defined, right? It's like you sent a message, that message wasn't for that person. They don't actually need to stick around. They're not on your team, like, in that sense. So, like, that part, I feel like I do okay with. Like, I totally have a little party. Like, whenever I get an unsubscribe, I'm like, oh, look at that. Like, I sent you a message that was about my writing and my life, and that wasn't for you. Then thank you, because, like, I totally paid for this mailing list. It's not free.
Right.
But I mean, like, the literal, like, he has parents of the kids that he's taught, the teachers. Like, these are, like, people who are, like, literally just, like, in his life, and I don't harness my actual family, my actual friends like that. And sometimes they are annoyed with me, but also I feel like I personally, this is again my own thing that I'm gonna clearly have to work through in therapy, that I feel like they're going to be annoyed with me if I actually am trying to, like, get them to do those things. So then I'm like, you know what, it's fine. There are people who are, like, excited, who, like, for whom this would be their thing. But I'm sure that there must be some way, in the way that Dr. Shipman has, I'm sure there must be some way for me to also be able to have those other people involved like he does, but not have it be an imposition, like, not have it be, it's like a way for them to be able to show him that they love him, that they care, but, like, it's not all the way into, like, buy my book, like, tell everybody to buy my book, kind of.
I think it's just, so much of who he is. I think that's why, like, but I don't think it's necessary that you have to get your, family. The other thing I want to say about that is, thinking of the other brand that I built up, and I used to think it was all about the content, like, now we think it's all about the content, our books. Do you like my books? And it took me, maybe 10 years, because I kept hearing this thing. I'd run workshops and people kept saying this, and I'm like, what do they mean? They'd say, we don't care what you teach. We just come to hang out with you for the whole weekend and pay the money. And I'm like, what? What are you talking about, right? It's been really weird switching a bit from that, like, getting that, it's what? It's not about my content. It's about hanging out with me. What do you mean? And yet when I write kids' books, I think, no, it's about the books. But slowly, this same message is coming through. Oh, we don't care what you write. It's just as long as you've written it. And I'm like, what? Hold on. That's what the other crowd was saying. Maybe that's actually a thing, right? So
I
like,
think that that's actually a thing.
I think
Like,
it's a thing. I do. And I don't think we think it's a thing enough because we're so defined by that story or book we wrote. And it's not actually so true. I think it is that in this day and age, I don't know, I'm going to go out on a limb and say, we love Harry Potter all that more because we love J.K. Rowling, like she's such a gorgeous human being. So it makes us love Harry even more.
agreed.
Right? It's that. And I don't care if she wrote, potatoes in the sky, like I'd probably go buy it because I love her. I think the barriers between authors and humans, do you like the way authors aren't humans?
Yeah.
Authors and humans have broken down. So I don't know. I get that sense from Terence, that it's people just love being in his presence. They wouldn't care if you wrote a book about, like anything. They'd be like, yay, we'll take it. He doesn't have to push it. He just has to create stuff and people just come because they love being in his presence. So anyway, that's my last thoughts on that matter.
Yeah, I think that's cool. So Karen Inglis has a new book.
Right, and it's been getting some great feedback, and a lot of people who don't know where to start have been finding it a great resource from what I'm hearing in Facebook groups, which is fantastic. And even people who are a little bit down the way, she's really put together such a massive amount of information, which she's even put our podcast in her book. So I'm very honored.
I know, bless her, like her dear self. She's amazing.
We're like, oh my God, we have to keep doing this till we're like 80 because we're in the book and books are always
like, no, it's permanent. That's like a real thing. So, yeah, no, Karen is always so generous, and like that, the book itself, I mean, we're going to talk about like what we learned from our interview, but the book itself is like it's a real monster. There's like a lot in the books. It's a super useful guide in general, and is like overly generous for the price. So so that's really cool. What were your takeaways from our interview with Karen?
Oh, I keep hearing that word, school visits, and I'm like, no. I haven't still done one, and I think it was on my goal list, and I completely failed.
It totally was on your goal list. I thought, okay, we can talk about that because I didn't hit all the things on my goal list either. But that's another episode. Okay.
I'm terrified, But on the aside, I feel been working on my communication skills so that when I stand up in front of children or teachers, that they don't completely eat me alive. That's one thing I've been doing, but it's this sort of mental concept of, so what am I going to talk to them about that I can't quite get my mind around. I mean, I've done a few visits, but not this year, but they were kind of sort of fell into place based around a book. And I don't know how to actually approach a school in a way that isn't, here's me and my books. I feel like I want it to be a bit more adding value to their classroom does that make sense? Am I wrong? I don't know. Correct.
No, it makes total sense. And I was going to say that I am less nervous about talking to young people. It is one of my few skills, right? Being able to talk to young people. I'm like the worst author in a line where like there's a line of kids to sign because I'm not going to not talk to the children. So then it just makes the line be extra long. Because I'm not going to not talk to them. Like, we're going to chat, like, we're going to connect. It's going to be great. And then we can go to the next person. And like, everybody gets to have that. So then that's fine. But I do not want to have to talk with the adults that are in charge of those.
Right.
Which is the whole other thing. So I think that one of the things that I really also thought about after Karen's interview, and actually all in the middle of it, and of Karen's this time when we got to talk to Karen, is that I need to think about what my message is for like pre-thinking the conversations with the adults inside of the space. And the thing that I came up with was, well, a thing that I am comfortable saying is, here's how this thing matches your curriculum, right? And here's a workshop that I can do. And it certainly won't be, okay, because I'm a famous author person and you should just want to know about me. It'll be like, here's a skill that we can all walk away with at the end of this time. And also I have some books, right?
I agree. I agree, and I think you can really do that because you've been, you've got the teacher skills and just even a concept of what what causes a good class structure and what kids get out of like I've almost got no concept of that in many ways. And the whole keeping to time thing, I'm terrible. Like me, can I just ask one more question at the end? Yeah, I would. I don't know. I need like if
I
there's a
suspect that you
counselor
have
out
more
there.
of that than you think or are letting on right now, more
Right, maybe
sense
I
of
just have
like
to
what the
do one.
structure is.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. It's like if you probably if you sat down to write out a workshop, like it would probably start to flow. Do you know
Okay.
what I mean? I don't know, whatever. But
I'll take it.
also you've got a tremendous community around you who can like give you feedback on that kind of thing. And you
True.
are building a tribe of both writers and readers. So then you can be all like, hey, here's a thing that I was thinking about. What do you guys think about it?
And if nothing else, I am very good at sharing my like full on my face moments. So, like if I just do one and it all goes terribly wrong, I would definitely be here going, this is what happened. For sure, for sure, for sure. But still, I don't know. I have this secret dream that it's just all going to go perfectly and be divine. And so I put it off. But yes, after hearing Karen again and thinking, oh my gosh, I still haven't like done that. What am I doing? And then I've also fallen into this trap of, and Karen's great for this because, she has her core lot of books. None of them are in a series, and that doesn't stop her. So she's got the same book, pretty much the same books for how many years, but she keeps doing those visits, and I'm like, oh no, those books are old. I need to have at least a couple more. I know, maybe a couple more. So, now I have 18, but still it's not quite enough. It's like insanity. Yeah. So if there's a
Yeah.
counselor out there who can help me, call me. Call me. That's sultry enough. Call me.
Yeah, no, I also got, yeah, we're clearly both of us are like on the fruit therapy train today. Like if anybody's got that out there, like let's have that happen. But from Karen as well, the idea for me, like I hear that, but also it's like to extend that, another thing is a reminder of how long the children's book game is.
Right.
So the fourth graders are new every year.
Yeah.
Every year it's a whole new set of kids. So if you go and speak to the fourth graders at an element, that's an annual gig if you do a great job. So then, and the book is new to them
I
every
hadn't
year.
thought of that until you just said that. Isn't that funny? Like I'm sure she said that, but I just heard it now when you said that.
Well, look at that. With like hearing the same thing with other people's voices, sometimes it just like clicks in a way. That's awesome. That's awesome. But like also like just thinking about like the long-term game of children's books. Like I was looking at a thing, somebody made one of those, how the internet yields all these like top 10 or top 9. They're never top 10 anymore. They're like 9 best this and 9 whatever. There was like a 9 best 49 books, like children's books that you should be making sure are on your shelves. And I'm like looking at this, and besides like the one that won all of the awards this year, Crown, every book was old as Bajiminy that was on the list. Yes, they were like 8 years old, 15 years old, 20 years. This was like so old, these books that are on this list. And that's not necessarily, it's not necessarily a bad thing, because if you're just getting to the point in your life where you are like in need of that, because now you have an 8-year-old or now you have a 10, then it's all new to you. Like you, yeah. Anyway, so
yeah, and
I think
different groups, different generations come back into things in different ways, don't they?
absolutely.
Yeah.
And so then that's great. And Karen did like a little not even revamping, but like a light revision on her covers.
Right.
And that's another thing too. It's like, yeah, okay, they've been out a little while. We'll just take a nice look at, and that's like what the big pubs do. They're like, you know what? Here's a brand new cover for this very, very old book that was written in 1960, but here is a modern kid on the front. There you go.
Yeah, and she's done that with The Secret Lake, and it started to really take off.
Yeah.
Amazing. It's amazing. Also
very
with
cool.
her, I was, print books. I think she, that reminder that print books do really well, and there's lots of different ways that you can get them out to people. which isn't just Amazon, although Amazon is wonderful. We love them dearly. There's, like she sells a lot through the schools, and I'm sure she does. Occasional market, I think she's mentioned, but there's ways to get them out there. So don't forget those print books, because they're not old-fashioned for children. They're still the number one choice.
Yep. All right. So then we had David Blaze on to talk. I love David. He's great.
He is blazing. Like, that is, he is blazing.
Oh, that was extra corny. That was so great.
He totally is. He's a shooting star. Sorry, David. I know, that's all. I'm far away, so you can't reach me in Australia. That's why I'm taking advantage. But doing fantastic with his chapter books. My Fox 8, My Homework. What a fabulous title.
Yeah,
no
great
wonder.
title, very clean. The cover art is very clean, very to the point. Like, it's, this is going to be funny. This is going to be like, it's giving you all the promises, like right there on the front. He's like really killing it with advertising. I think the weirdest thing about that, I like thoroughly enjoyed that interview. He's great and he's super generous. Is that like at the very end, he's all like, oh yeah, I'm doing some weird stuff too. Like billboards. I was like, what? You're an indie author. Like, you're like a self-published, like an indie author, and you're doing billboards. I'm not being bold anymore. Like, that's, like, yes, let's all be bold, like that honestly, for me, that was like the biggest, be bold is like the biggest takeaway there. And sometimes you need to have a little setup in order to be able to be bold, but it doesn't always mean being like rash, but like, anyway, that was, although there were lots of, there was lots of useful information in there. You should go back and listen if you haven't heard that. It wasn't just this gimmicky thing that I got off the end. Elena's going to save that part now. So Elena, what were your takeaways?
The billboards were awesome. I have not tried that yet myself, I must confess. But I think David was a really good example, and why I was so pleased to bring that interview to authors is because it's important to recognize that, yes, the more self-helpy type books like Laurie writes are fabulous, but a lot of authors don't write them. Like that, some authors do just want to write stories, that aren't, like, they all have a theme, of course. There's a theme in every story, but to be able to show an author who's financially doing well and is writing chapter books, I mean, that's fantastic, about everyday stuff, stuff going on in school or whatever. I mean, there's fantasy in there too. It's doing so well. It's doing so well. It's all about how much effort you put in. I suppose that's what I really got from David. He's got this real kind of approach of, I'm just going to keep going until I learn the ropes, and I'm going to get the book there. And he has. He's got a new series, I think, he's continuously still doing very well. And he mentioned some things like getting the look inside. Don't underestimate the power of that. Make sure that initial first chapter or couple of chapters really does, like you said earlier with your validation stuff, thank you for clarifying, connects with your reader. That's the validation that you're talking about. It's that the reader goes, oh, I really like this. I can relate to this. And we are grown-ups trying to write kids' books, and we do need that, because we're not little kids anymore. It'd be great if we were, but we wouldn't have the language that we do. So, we have to, Anyways, that's my takeaway.
All right. Very cool. And then we have Jessica Brody, and I'm surprised that you're not just like fainting at the mention of her name.
Oh my God. I'm going to do, ready? I'm going to do my Greek. Oh my God. Oh my God. I had to do that for all the Greeks out there. Oh my God. She was amazing. I know. You better go first, because I just won't shut up.
So I love periodically you have to go back and like keep reading things about the basics of what you're doing in terms of story structure, right? So like you read a book, right? It's like reading like the Odyssey when you're like 6. You probably caught something out of that story. You definitely did, right? But then
Yeah.
you took whatever you could catch out of it, and it was great at the time. And then you read it again when you were 10, and you were like, oh, holy moly, I didn't even realize that that had happened in there, because now you're like a little bit more prepared to hear a little bit more of it. You can act on a little bit more of it, all that jazz. So I always love having a reminder. Hey, like, when was the last time you went back and read about story structure, right? But then like being able to hear how clear that reminder is because of Jessica's story, where she said, I had a story that I loved and I tried to get it out there and it didn't work. And then I had another story that I loved and I tried to get it out there and it didn't work. And then I fixed it using story structure, and then bam, and ever since then they've been working, right? And I can figure out when it's not working, how and why it's not working, because it's like, oh yes, reminder, the structure is not your constraint, the structure is your freedom. Like, go back and read and remember about those things, and you'll probably be able to implement something new that you didn't have the emotional mental space to be able to implement the first time that you read that thing through. So that has prompted my little local writers group to like pull back out our copies of Save the Cat. And also, I also now have a copy of her version of Save the Cat, which is just for novels. And so we started like taking a look at it together, to do a little compare and contrast of that. Mostly there's a lot of tone difference, which I actually super appreciate her version, because the tone is, for me, better. I don't want to say better in general, because everything's so
That's the
subjective, but like
point.
for me better. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I think you nailed it when you said that. It is the tone is different. I wouldn't have thought that because I haven't read the original in a while, but you're right. The tone is quite different. And because she writes also middle grade, I think that's why I also appreciate it, because a lot of structure books are mostly, and they'll often talk romance and other sort of things, but very few touch upon kids stuff, and she does put in a bit of kids stuff in there, and she's written that, so I appreciate that part of what's in there. And I did, for me, what I did is I took that structure and wrote a book in 15 days using it, to just see if the structure would make me go faster and cleaner and better. So I didn't essentially plot it, because I'm still mostly a pantser, but I would stop and check the structure kind of, and then go, and
How did that go for you?
it's still the editor. And you know what happens to me is I send it off to the editor and think it's amazingly fantastic, and then I'm about to take over the world. And then it comes back from the editor with all these edits. And then I
Like,
crumble and
we're supposed to send you back. It's like, have you ever seen that A Christmas Story movie? The one where he's like, you'll shoot your eye out or whatever. Where he's daydreaming. The kid Ralphie is daydreaming about he's writing an essay for school, and they have to write like a little theme on what they want to get for Christmas. And he's writing his theme that he wants to get a Red Ryder BB gun. And he's saying thing, but while he's writing it, he's imagining what the teacher's going to say when she reads this. And she's like, oh, all of these are horrible. A Red Ryder BB gun. Oh, it's genius. A plus, 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 plus. And that's you with like the editor. Totally. You're like, the editor is going to send me back A plus, plus, plus.
That's exactly right. And I'm even more convinced this time around, because I used Jessica's structure. So of course she's going to do that.
You're like, what else are you going to say? Amazing. Well, I hope for you that the editor sends back A plus plus plus, or that if the editor does in fact send back A plus plus plus, that it's also like filled with all the things that made them say A plus plus plus, because somebody just telling you something's great is probably not going to teach you that much. But
no, that's exactly right. And the other thing from Jessica was, she finished up a little bit talking about how to be a more productive writer, and she sort of touched upon it just briefly at the end. And as a result, I'm like, she's right. I didn't buy that course. That is like so bad of me. How could I not have bought that course? So I went and bought the course, of course. The course, of course. Course is not a course unless it's bought, of course. So I bought the course. There we are. And it was amazing. It's amazing. Like, I don't know why I didn't buy that earlier. Go and buy that, people. It's like so crazy affordable. It's not even, I mean, to me, it's like free. And it's stupidly simple. But as a result of doing it, I started turning off my phone. Well, she says this thing, I think, in there of, she'd get up and she'd check her emails and she'd do all this stuff online. And then one day she had to stop herself and say, am I a professional writer or am I a professional emailer? And I'm like, oh my God, she's right. I have to turn my world around. So I started turning off my phone and my computer in the evening, about 10:30, whatever time I go to bed. And I don't turn them back on until 12:30 at lunchtime every day. And if the kids die at school, well, I can find out at lunchtime. It ain't going to make a difference if I find out in the morning. And so, I've had to psychologically work on that because these days, we just need to know everything as it happens in case something goes wrong, in case something's happening. But in the old days, we didn't have that, did we? Yeah. And it's just made my productivity skyrocket and my peace of mind and my health and everything else, actually, as a result. So, yeah, that's all because of Jessica.
Amazing. That is like a ringing endorsement.
Yeah.
Productivity, really health, happiness. Like what else what are the other things?
Yeah. And I think it's because she walks the path and she shares the truth. She doesn't just make it look like what she says in the course is not some golden, easy thing. It's actually really hard self-discipline stuff. And yet, she also talks about how she went from, writing 1 book a year to writing 4 a year. That's trad published books, which is, I think, pretty impressive. Yeah, and given everything else she does. And she's had to get real, and so she shares about getting real in her stuff. And that's the only reason I'm really like singing her praises so dramatically. I think she does look for ways to make the things she does work. And then she shares that. And, on Udemy, everything is so, in my opinion, so affordable. It's amazing to have access to someone of her caliber in such an affordable way. It really is, and we were lucky to get her on the show, I think. It was amazing. Yeah. You often write to people who have got that level of success and they never write back. She wrote back straight away. Would love to. When do you want to do it? I was like, oh, my God. So
that's amazing.
It was a great finishing interview to this series and essentially to the year.
Essentially to the year. So you are about to go on your intense summer holidays. Is that correct?
That is correct. The big Aussie barbecue holiday. Why is it called that? I don't know. I just made that up because we had barbies.
I was like, is that really what it's called? That's what I was going to ask. No, but you answered that. Okay, that's good. That's awesome. And so for the most part, we will not be back on until like the end of January, right? Or is it early February?
Right, early Jan. No, late Jan, sorry. Yeah.
Yeah, late January. So to be able to give you so much time to be able to have fun in the sun. I hope you guys are like having amazing like adventurous family vacays while the kids are out of school on their long vacay. Do y'all have big stuff planned?
I'm sure we'll dig up something, but we've just like been so busy that we haven't given it any thoughts. So we're going to do something completely last minute. Oh, which is my style, but not my husband's. He likes to plan everything. And I'm like, let's just decide when the time comes. He's like, everything's going to be booked out when the time comes. So we'll see.
Well, I'm sure you'll get it sorted. That sounds like it sounds really enviable. I like kind of wish that in the States, even though it's winter, I've honestly, because where I live, it's hot. So this is like the nice time of year. Like when it's winter in New Orleans is like when it's nice and bearable, where you want to go outside and like garden and like, go for a run and like, because it's like not horribly like life defyingly hot outside. So I wish that we had a long vacation at this time. This would be the perfect time for me for us to get to do that kind of thing. But sadly, our schools are not lined up like that. And so then I
Yeah.
don't get that opportunity. So I'm just going to live vicariously through you. Make sure you guys have fun.
Awesome. We won't disappoint you. I'll try my best.
Right.
But we
So
are
that
going
if
to
you-
come back. We are going to come back with an extra episode before the end of the year. How about you tell everybody about that?
Yeah, no, I think that we our plan that we are going to do a like 2018 wrap up and 2019 goal setting episode. So if you are one of the people who has emailed us or commented with your goals, or if you want to be one of the people who emails or comments with your goals so that you can write goals along with us, we're going to be doing our year in review and setting goals that people will hopefully help hold us to. And if you want to be a part of that, then you should totally join in, and you can email us with them at the indie kidlit podcast at gmail.com. And otherwise, if you are just wanting to be able to pass this information on to other writer friends who you think might be able to benefit from hearing the diversity of ideas that are like that we've been able to have in the interview so far, it's like really lucky and very cool. Then where should we send them, Elena?
Do you mean the website? Was that my
do.
cue? Did I miss
That
the
was your
cue?
cue to say the
That was
website
my
correctly
cue.
so that I don't say it wrong.
Right. www.indiekidlitpodcast. So without the.com. Just to confuse you. Just to keep you in.
Because like, we don't get paid for this. So we split up tasks and do them separately. Like, you make an email, I'll make the website, and then we come back together and they don't match.
I think that Indie KidLit podcast was taken, I think, from memory. It was already someone else
Maybe,
took it.
This is, but it's the spice of life, people. We're gonna keep that
Clearly
together.
didn't take the email, so that's good.
All right. Okay.
Good.
Well, we will see. We will see everybody soon. And if you want to join in with us, that's great. And if not, then we hope that you have a happy new year.
And we'll see you in 2000.